Gundam.tk presents Providence Gundam. Hey again everybody, it's Robert184, 2Rs, 2Bs from YouTube and Gundam.tk, and as the Providence Gundam thoughtfully spins into place, this is my verdict. You've already seen the unbox, the parts, and the mobile suit, but I'm going to give you all the good and bad things that I thought about this, and you can let me know what your thoughts are with a comment down below. So to kick things off with some of the negatives, let's get into just the fact that this guy comes across as being a little bit chunky. And that's something that I think would have been remedied if it got a master grade, and I wonder if the 1/100th non-grade legend from Seed Destiny has the same problem, or if he's just stretched out, because that's, when Katoki Hajime does something for Gundam, basically all he does is just add a little bit of height and everything just looks that much cooler. And I think the Providence Gundam could have used that. Another thing is just going back to old problems like seam lines down the front. You've got them in the legs, you've got them in the arms, and they're a little bit visible. It's not quite white. Basically, seam lines in the front are something that Bandai's been moving away from, but in 2004 were still, sadly, evident. In terms of the pieces themselves, they're big and they're bulky. When you crack this out of the box, you may be excused for just saying that this is clearly a non-grade kit, because just from the size of these, especially with some of these monster pieces here, that's something you never see in a master grade. The overall effect works, but if you're looking for a very interesting, minute kind of build, certainly 1/100th non-grades may not be the right one for you. Then in terms of articulation, well, with the chest, you have 0 points. You don't get that very often. The hips are just simple ball and socket, and the shoulders you just slide on the polycap. So all the new fancy technology we're seeing in hip and shoulder on these plastic model kits, you're just not going to see them here. Now, unfortunately, I was really hoping that the Dragoons were going to be a little bit more exciting than they are. And it's not that they don't look good. There's good lining places, and you can put in some color if you chose to. However, being one piece just means when you cut them off, they're ready to go onto the Gundam. Certainly adds for ease of build, but it certainly doesn't add in terms of the wow factor as you marvel at how Bandai turned 6 different pieces into a single gray Dragoon, which you might get on something else. Another big knock against this big fellow is his unfortunate beam rifle, and the big problems for that is simply that it's incredibly dull. Yes, one color dark gray, which is at least offset from the main color of the body, so it shows up, but the fact that it's got no sensors, no stickers, nothing on it, just is a little bit disappointing, especially when you combine it with the fact that when you put it in the manipulator, it's going to flop around and fall down and not do pretty much anything. Now with these long weapons, you can imagine that the shoulders are always going to cause a bit of a problem. In this one, if you ever actually tried to bend the arm up and put this under the shoulder, it looks horrible, especially combined with the fact that it's not going to stay in place. You need to put it up on the top. So the beam rifle is something that probably isn't going to be displayed too much for me, which is a little disappointing because it adds a lot of visual oomph in the anime. Now the shield, this is something that a little bit controversial perhaps. Not that anything here is really that controversial, but just in terms of this, it doesn't look very good when you put it on. It's practical, the fact that you cover up the hand, but when you put it on, it sort of loses the effect, and until you get the beam saber on, I think it's one of the lesser attractive shields in a series that's always been known since the RX-78-2 of having a very interesting shield on the left arm. Now another thing is this figure. This is going to have cost you more money when you're paying the 2,500 yen for this kit. If you're going to paint them, then, well, more power to Bandai. And if you're going to buy the kit because it was in there, again, they made more sales. For me, it's just going to sit in a Ziploc and never be used, which is sort of unfortunate. So you're paying extra for something that you may not use. The fact that we don't see it too often from Bandai kits shows that they may have been a little bit less than pleased with the results, and Seed Destiny, their 1/100th line, got rid of them. But with the focus on characters, I can see why they'd want to include it. It's just unfortunate that I don't paint, so it's going to be unutilized. The other big things, here's my last two. You can't recreate the launch scene, and that's because this head has no posability. When it comes out of the fiery elevator and heads off to go meet Mu and Kira, or whatever happened at the end of Seed, it's been a while, it's unfortunate that you can't recreate that scene with an epic launch, and that comes down to a basic lack of posability. And the final complaint, what can you do with these Dragoons? Well, let's see. Perhaps that's about it. The Dragoons by themselves, you can't display them, which means they've either got to be on, which means he's getting ready to attack, but you can't have them off and displayed in some epic way, which is pretty much to be expected, but still would have been nice if there was something, perhaps instead of these, if they had just given you some sort of a mounting base to put a few of them on and recreate the Providence at its best. So is it all doom and gloom for the Providence Gundam? Far from it. There's tons of good things, and those good things may just be enough on balance for you to want to pick up this kit. The first one being for me, the color applications. Going back to 2004 non-grade, you don't expect to see sometimes small blue, navy blue pieces there, the gray, the red parts on the shoulders, these blue parts, even though they're on the back, then you're not going to see them too often. I think that they really add to this kit and it fills it out. It looks exactly like it did in the anime, and that's what you want. Whether you need a master grade for that, I think the 1/100th does the job. In terms of the heft or the bulk of the Gundam, the Providence is supposed to be big, bulky, and strong, and that appearance comes across. Whether he's a little too chunky is of course up to you to decide, but I think he fills out perfectly and looks intimidating on your shelf just because of the sheer size of that massive backpack strapped on there. Now, something that's a little surprising is the manual is fun. It's got a great cover, good line art, information inside. You don't expect sometimes old manuals to be interesting, but this one I actually enjoyed flipping through. Now, top to bottom, some of the other good things, I really liked the ankles of the Providence Gundam, believe it or not. They've got a simple polycap design, and the way the foot is very simple but fits in there. These ankle guards don't get in the way at all, but the ankle works. You're going to get good posing on the ground with it, which is surprising for a kit of this size. The Dragoons, in terms of playability, are great because they're easy to put on, they're easy to take off, you just slide them on, slide them off. They're differentiated, so you're not going to make mistakes between attaching this one up here and vice versa. Everything's easy to do. The Dragoons, despite being very simple in their construction, by which I mean one piece, they do the job in terms of playing. Now, the chest piping up here is certainly a nice touch because when I think chest piping, I think of Zaku 2s and Zeon suits. The Providence being what it is, the fact that it's a good guy looking, but it has those kind of little bad guy hints on it. For me, the pipes work great. You can add a little bit of lining if you want. They're not as complex as a Master Grade Zaku version 2.0, but in this case, I'm happy for the simplicity. The shoulders, I think, are a great design by the mechanical designer. The red parts in there, good lining opportunities. They really add up. If you had that backpack sticking out without the wide shoulders, I think that the whole thing would look a little silly. So having the wide on the front and back, well, by which I mean the shoulders and the back, certainly works for me. Now the shield, I said that it didn't look that good, but in terms of practicality, and I know it's always fun to talk about realism when we're talking about cartoon robots, but basically the shield works. If you're going to be slashing at somebody with a beam saber on, why not protect your hand, or in this case, your robotic manipulator? And the fact that you can plug it in and it works effectively, it stays in there, solid grip, and just on visuals, the shield is going to look good from whichever side you look at it. Sounds intriguing, something they haven't done too often in Gundam, but the Providence did it, and I think it's a great idea. Maybe it doesn't look that good overall. But in terms of the head, that's my other big pleased part about this. Whenever you build an old kit, you always wonder, am I going to have to paint this? Am I going to have to add paint apps? And whether it's some gray on the face or on the mouth guard, things like that. In this case, when I looked at the box, I saw the black parts around the head and I said, those are probably going to have to be painted. Even though with the 1/100th Exia for non-grades, you expect that kind of thing. But in this case, they do give you the pieces fit on. Take the good guy design with that yellow camera up at the top, which adds to the bad guy effect. And you don't have to add stickers, you don't have to add anything, you don't have to paint it. The head is going to look good right out of the box with a little bit of lining and really set off the good guy, yet the fact that this is a bad guy. And the final thing for me is just the heft and the weapons. When you put the weapons on, the beam rifle and the shield, he does look impressive, and that's mostly down to the fact that he's got the cardinal points, 8 different points shooting off. All of these weapons can look good. You can bend these Dragoons forward, twist them up, flop these ones down. Whatever you want to do with it, the backpack is going to make this guy look armed, hefty, and dangerous. So what's my final verdict? Well, at the end of the day, I wish we had a master grade, and I'm sure lots of people do, but for a 1/100th kit, this is great. And I'm never going to be one of those people who waits for a version 2.0 and puts off buying for something. At the end of the day, it's a climax bad guy antagonist from the end of the series. You need this if you want to show off the good and bad guys on your shelves. It does a pretty good job of capturing the power of the anime, and it had a lot of power in the anime, so the fact that this kit captures, let's say, roughly 70% to throw out a random number, I think it's fantastic. For the Dragoons, what can you expect until they invent anti-gravity machines? And I'm sure they're going to be used for more important things than putting your toys and their projectiles in nice displays. For what it is, it's a 1/100th 2004 kit, and it's the best we've got, and I'm very happy to have it. And I'd recommend that if you are a fan of Seed or Roller Cruise or the Providence Gundam, that you would enjoy this as well. In the end though, that's just one guy's opinion, so why don't you let me know yours about the mobile suit, about the pilot, about the model, and about this video. Always love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, lots more to come, good guys, and as you're seeing, more of the bad guys. Anyway, thanks for watching everybody. Robert 184 Gundam.tk as he sneaks into the frame here. See you next time, thanks for watching. Would have been sort of cool if we had teamed up at some points. Well, you know, I was only in a couple episodes, and really, Gaidens, they're not worth my time.